He was just a slave until the alien widow who loved Earth set him free. Reed Marlowe woke with his cheek on cold metal and the taste of copper in his mouth. Lights pulsed red, then white, then red again like a slow heartbeat that did not care if he lived or died. The prison barge groaned as it drifted into the ice ring, Glass Harbor, a city carved from shining frost around a pale, tired star. Every wall hummed with engines. Every shadow smelled like rust and fear. He pushed himself up. A collar sat tight against his neck. A tag blinked on his wrist. Utility only. Around him stood captives from 100 worlds. Some had extra joints that bent the wrong way. Some had skins like stone or mist. All had the same hollow eyes, the look people get when they have stopped counting the days. New one, a guard grunted. The guard's armor looked grown, not built, plates overlapping like the back of a beetle. He tapped Reed's tag with a shock baton. Human, low value, long lungs. Work until you break. Reed stared at the baton and said nothing. His head still rang from the capture on the mining outpost. One moment he had been sorting ore with greasy hands. The next, the sky had filled with nets of blue light and the sirens would not stop. Whistles echoed. The slaves were pushed into lines. Overhead, a screen showed prices in a language that updated faster than his eyes could track. Lot numbers, ages, species, projected yield. The numbers turned lives into math. A small shape stumbled near his boots. A child-sized alien, thin as a reed with big dark eyes and soft gray skin. She clutched a cloth pouch to her chest. A guard shoved her. She fell hard, breath bursting like a gasp from a flute. Move, the guard barked, baton lifting. Reed stepped between them before he knew he was moving. She's moving, he said. The guard stared. Did you just speak to me, tool? Reed looked at the baton, then at the girl. She's moving, he repeated, voice flat. The first hit cracked against his ribs. Pain flashed white. He did not go down. The second hit caught his shoulder. He swayed, tasted copper again, and straightened. Around them, the crowd went very quiet, as if the entire bay held its breath. A horn sounded long and low. The far door slid open. Silence tightened. Even the guards stood straighter. What entered did not hurry. It glided like a shadow on ice. She was tall. Her skin shone like the inside of a shell, pale with soft colors hidden under it as if light lived there. Hair fell to her waist in a slow silver glow. Patterns, thin as frost lines on glass, traced her arms. Her eyes were large and calm. Her clothes were simple, black and flowing, a cut that said money without trying. On her arm rested a thin rod of polished metal, more ornament than weapon. At her side walked two attendants with smooth amber skin and ridge-like brows. They carried nothing. They needed nothing. Lady Saris Vale, the commander announced, bowing so low his armor creaked. Glass Harbor welcomes you. Saris did not look at him. Her gaze slid over the room like a scan. It passed the big, the strong, the exotic. It stopped on Reed, on the guard, on the girl curled tight behind his leg. What is this delay? Saris asked. Her voice was cool like water in a deep place. Discipline, my lady, the commander said quickly. A human that does not understand the order of things. Saris stepped closer. The crowd shifted back without thinking. She looked up at Reed. He was taller than most aliens here. Broad from years in low-grav rigs, hands still nicked with minor scars. He met her eyes. He did not blink. Why did you place yourself between the guard and the child? She asked. She fell, Reed said. He kept hitting. Sarah studied him as if he were a puzzle piece she had been missing. Name? Reed Marlowe. Tag? He lifted his wrist. The utility only blinked with dull light. Saris turned to the commander. I will take him. The commander froze. My lady, the human is low-grade stock, difficult, not worth... Saris tilted her head. It was not a threat, but every guard felt it like a knife laid on the table. Did I ask for your appraisal? No, my lady, the commander said, eyes down. And the small one, Saris added, nodding to the gray child. Bundle her with the human. The guards hesitated. Saris's attendants did not. One tapped a screen. Cuffs unlocked with a soft click. The girl looked up at Reed, still hugging her pouch. He offered a hand. She took it. Her fingers were tiny and strong. As they moved, the barge shuddered, a low rumble through the deck plates. A second horn howled from somewhere outside. The commander's visor flashed with alerts. Docking error? He snapped. Negative, a tech called. It's a private tether fast. ID masked. Saris glanced toward the ceiling as if she could see through metal, through ice, into space. The silver in her hair brightened, then dimmed. "Someone is impatient," she said softly. "Shall I delay departure, my lady?" the commander asked. Saris smiled without showing teeth. "No, bill my rivals twice, and send them a mirror so they can admire their bad timing." The attendants positioned Reed and the girl beside Saris. A corridor opened like a throat ahead, white and clean, leading away from stink and shouting and math. Reed looked back once at the lines of faces, at the guards, at the screen turning bodies into numbers. He made himself remember it. He wanted the anger to stay hot. The girl tugged his sleeve. "I am Kiri," she whispered. "Reed," he said. "You stood up," Kiri said. "That was not smart." "Maybe not," Reed answered. "But it was right." They walked into the bright corridor as the doors behind them sealed. The hum shifted to a softer tone. The air no longer burned his throat. The walls glowed faintly, lit from within. "What happens now?" Reed asked. Saris did not look back. "Now," she said, "you stop being a number." Outside, unseen, something latched to the barge's hull with a hard, hungry click. Engines spun up. Someone out there wanted the human before Lady Saris Vale left the ice. The race had already begun. The hum of engines faded into silence as the transport rose above Glass Harbor's glittering ice. Through the narrow window, Reed Marlowe saw the frozen ring fall away, an endless field of crystal shards circling a pale sun. It was beautiful, but it wasn't freedom. The cuffs were gone, yet he could still feel them. Lady Saris Vale sat opposite him in the sleek cabin. The walls curved like flowing metal, light rippling through them in soft waves. At her feet lay a small creature, Kiri, curled in a blanket, eyes half closed. Saris stroked the girl's hair absently, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dim light. "You are quiet," Saris said at last. Her tone was gentle, but her eyes were sharp, studying every detail. "I'm waiting to wake up," Reed answered. "Usually dreams end before the rich lady buys the slaves." Saris smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, just a curve of curiosity. "You are not a slave anymore." Reed leaned back. "You own this ship?" "I own many ships," she said, "but this one is unspecial. You will see soon." The ship banked and stars spilled across the window like dust. They entered the shadow of a moon, small, gray, and laced with shining domes. As they descended, Reed saw towers of glass and light stretching from crater floors. Landing pads rotated open like petals. When the ship touched down, the floor gave a soft vibration like a heartbeat returning. Two attendants met them at the ramp, bowing low. They spoke in a flowing language Reed didn't understand, but every syllable carried discipline. Saris replied briefly, then turned to him. "Follow me. Do not wander." He followed her through corridors so clean they looked unreal. Light came from hidden panels in the walls. There was no noise, only the soft echo of their footsteps. They entered a vast chamber, and Reed stopped. It wasn't a room. It was a museum. Rows of objects stretched into the distance, shelves of books bound in faded leather, human paintings hung beside alien crystal art, clocks ticking out of rhythm. In the center, a globe of Earth rotated inside a stasis field, oceans and clouds perfectly preserved. Reed walked forward, staring. "You collect this?" "I preserve it," Saris corrected. "Things that die too soon. Worlds that forget their beginnings." "Earth isn't dead," Reed said. She gave a small, distant smile. "No, but your kind scatter so fast. Fragments of you end up everywhere. Sometimes the fragments need a caretaker." He turned, scanning the relics. Some were cracked. Others looked untouched by time. Every display felt like a ghost whispering from behind glass. Kiri tugged his sleeve, pointing at a row of small statues. "What are they?" "Chess pieces," he said automatically. "Used to play a game, strategy." "War," Saris said softly. "Humans play at war even in leisure." Reed frowned. "And you? You buy people. You lecture about morality while you're—" "I saved you," she interrupted, voice low but cutting. "Would you prefer the auction block?" Reed looked away. "You bought me. That's not saving." For a heartbeat, silence thickened. Then Saris said, "Perhaps not yet." She gestured to a balcony above the exhibits. "Come. There is more to see." The upper floor opened into glass walkways that overlooked the frozen valleys outside. From here he saw small figures working among domes and gardens, servants, maybe prisoners. They moved with purpose, not fear. The air smelled faintly of rain, even though the moon had no weather. "This place," Reed said quietly. "What is it?" "Home," Saris replied. "A sanctuary for what others destroy." She looked at him then, truly looked as if measuring something more than his height or strength. "You interest me, human." "Most break." You resisted, even under pain. "I've been hit before," Reed muttered. "Pain's not special." "Defiance is," she said. "Defiance changes history." Her words hung there, strange and heavy. Reed didn't know whether to feel proud or trapped. As night fell across the domes, faint blue lights shimmered under the ice outside. They pulsed slowly, alive like a sleeping creature. From somewhere deep within the structure came the sound of mechanical movement. Massive doors closing, systems locking. "Security," Saris explained when he glanced around. "The harbor has long memories. Not all of them friendly." Reed nodded but said nothing. His instincts, trained from years on rough colonies, screamed that this was no simple collection. The corridors were too thickly armored. The windows too small. This wasn't just a home, it was a fortress. When they reached the guest quarters, Saris stopped. The doors slid open to reveal a room filled with things from Earth. A rug from Istanbul, an old guitar. A stack of yellowed paperbacks. Reed stepped inside slowly. "You had this ready?" "I have many rooms ready," she said. "Some stay empty for a long time." He turned to face her. "Why me?" Her gaze met his, unreadable as starlight. "You'll learn that soon enough." The door slid shut behind her with a soft hiss. Reed stood in the silence, surrounded by relics of his own lost world. A clock on the shelf ticked once every 3 seconds. Outside, faint lights moved under the ice, too many to be reflections. He realized then that Glass Harbor wasn't done with him. It was watching. And somewhere, deep beneath its frozen crust, something had begun to move. Morning, or whatever passed for morning under the glass domes, came in a slow ripple of pale light. Artificial suns rose from hidden panels, painting the sky gold. Reed Marlowe sat on the terrace outside his assigned quarters, a cup of something hot and bitter in his hands. It wasn't coffee, but close enough to make him nostalgic. Beyond the transparent wall, the frozen valley shimmered like a sea of broken mirrors. For a moment, he almost believed the calm. Then he heard the faint click of footsteps, measured, graceful, deliberate. Lady Saris Vial never hurried, not even when gravity itself seemed to bend around her. She stopped beside him, her silver hair catching the light. "You didn't eat," she observed. "Still deciding if I'm hungry," Reed said. "Your body requires fuel. Defiance does not replace nutrition." He glanced at her. "You always talk like that?" "Like what?" "Like someone who's already won the argument." She smiled faintly. "Perhaps I have." The attendants arrived with trays of food, fruit that glowed faintly, bread that steamed as if alive. Reed stared at it. "You don't have bacon, do you?" "Bacon? Forget it," he muttered, taking a cautious bite. Saris watched him as if studying a new creature. "You adapt quickly. Humans do that. You either adapt or die." She folded her hands. "That is what makes your kind so unpredictable." Reed met her gaze. "You mean dangerous?" "Sometimes the two are the same." Before he could reply, the door hissed open. Kiri bounded in, her gray skin brighter now that she'd slept. She was carrying something shiny, one of the small clockwork toys from the museum. "It moves when I press here," she said proudly, making the gears turn. Reed grinned. "You fixed it?" Kiri nodded. "It was sad. I made it happy again." Saris regarded the little alien for a long moment. "You understand machines?" Kiri's eyes glowed faintly. "I listen. Machines tell you where they hurt." Reed chuckled. "Looks like you've got a new engineer." Saris's tone softened. "We all need something to fix." The light mood didn't last. Moments later, a deep vibration rolled through the floor. Reed looked up sharply. "What was that?" Saris tilted her head. "Security test, perhaps." But her voice had lost its calm edge. An alarm pulsed somewhere distant, muffled but unmistakable. She touched her wrist and murmured something in her own language. A projection flared to life beside her, a red icon rotating over a schematic of the dome. "Unauthorized landing on the outer platform," she said quietly. "Too precise to be smugglers." "Then who?" Reed asked. "Someone looking for you." Before he could answer, the lights flickered. A shockwave rattled the glass overhead. The valley beyond filled with streaks of descending fire. Carrie screamed. Saris's attendants rushed in, one handing her a small control device, the other drawing a sleek weapon. "Get them to the lower passage," Saris ordered. Reed hesitated. "I can help. I've done repairs under bombardment before." "This isn't a mining accident," she snapped. "Neither was New Montana," he shot back. Their eyes locked, hers cool as ice, his burning with stubborn fire. Then she nodded once. "Very well. Stay close." They moved through the corridors, the alarms blaring louder. Drones zipped overhead like angry wasps. Reed saw flashes of movement through glass, ships hovering close to the dome, soldiers dropping through plasma mist. Whoever they were, they came prepared. At a blast door, Saris stopped and spoke to a panel. The metal folded open, revealing a narrow stair spiraling downward. "Go," she ordered Kiri. The girl hesitated. "You'll come too?" "I'll follow," Saris promised. As Kiri disappeared down the stairwell, Reed turned to Saris. "You knew this might happen." "I suspected," she admitted. "Collectors have enemies, but few attack this openly. Then whoever it is really wants me. Or what you represent." A sudden boom shook the hall. The glass above them cracked, raining shards of glowing dust. Through it, Reed saw shapes descending, armored figures with insignias burning on their chests. Saris raised her weapon, a blade of light unfolding from its core. "Stay behind me." "Not a chance," he said, grabbing a metal pole from the wreckage. "You cover the front. I'll handle whatever gets through." The first soldier hit the floor running. Reed swung hard, the pole catching the attacker across the neck. Sparks flew. He didn't even have time to breathe before another came through. Saris moved like a storm, every motion precise, every strike silent. When it was over, 3 enemies lay sprawled across the floor. Reed's arms ached, lungs burning. Saris looked at him with something new in her expression, respect and maybe a little awe. "You fight like someone who has nothing to lose." He wiped blood from his lip. "Maybe that's what makes us dangerous." She stared at him for a long time, then said softly, "Or valuable." Another explosion tore through the outer dome, brighter than before. The entire structure shuddered. Saris turned toward the stairwell. "We can't hold them here. There's a secondary exit beneath the archives." As they ran, the distant roar of engines grew louder. Reed realized with grim certainty that whoever was attacking had no interest in survivors. But he also knew one thing. If they wanted to take him, they'd have to go through both him and the woman who bought his freedom. And neither of them planned to go quietly. The attack ended as suddenly as it began. When Reed Marlowe awoke, his head throbbed and the air smelled faintly of burnt ozone. The walls around him were cracked and the floor carried fine dust that glittered like snow. Somewhere above, the dome lights flickered, fighting to stay alive. He sat up slowly, chest tight. The last thing he remembered was the explosion, the glare, the sound of shattering glass, Saris shouting his name before everything turned white. Now, silence. A faint humming came from the far side of the room. He turned. A transparent stasis field shimmered there, containing a tall figure whose silver hair glowed faintly in the dim light. Saris Vale, she was alive, unconscious but breathing. A medical drone hovered over her, light scanning across her body in slow passes. Systemic shock, moderate trauma. The drone chirped in a neutral voice. Vital signs stable. Reed exhaled and rubbed his temples. "Good," he muttered. "Because I'm out of ideas." He rose to his feet, staggering slightly, and looked around. The walls here were different, darker, reinforced, lined with faintly pulsing conduits. He wasn't in the guest quarters anymore. This place felt older, more secret. Behind him, the drone beeped. Patient awakening. Saris stirred, eyes fluttering open. The silver patterns under her skin brightened like starlight behind frosted glass. When her gaze found him, she pushed herself up with quiet strength. "You stayed," she said softly. "Didn't have much of a choice," Reed replied. Everything else collapsed. Her eyes softened for a fraction of a second before her expression hardened again. "We need to move. This section is sealed, but the attackers might still be searching." "Who were they?" Reed asked. "They weren't random raiders. Too organized." Saris stood, brushing off fragments of dust. "The Vorik Syndicate. They hunt what they cannot understand." "You mean me?" he said bitterly. Her gaze met his. "You and what you represent," Reed frowned. "What I represent? I'm a miner, a guy who digs in the dirt for metal. Not just a miner, she said quietly. A human, he stared. That's supposed to mean something? Saris took a deep breath, then turned and walked toward a sealed door at the end of the chamber. You deserve to see the truth. The door opened to a stairwell spiraling downward into dim light. Reed followed, the sound of their footsteps echoing. At the bottom was another chamber, vast, circular, and cold. Holographic lights hung in the air, showing rotating molecular chains, double helixes of glowing blue. This, Saris said, gesturing to the display, is what your people call DNA. Reed blinked. You're studying humans. My late husband was, she corrected. Her voice was distant now, almost reverent. He believed your species carried something unique, an adaptability no other race possesses. You evolve faster, endure more, and thrive in environments that destroy others. He thought human genetics could be the key to saving my kind. Saving? Saris nodded. The Theans perfected themselves centuries ago, eliminated disease, enhanced intellect, extended life. But perfection is a slow death. Our births are dwindling. Our children grow weaker each generation. We engineered ourselves into extinction. Reed stared at the glowing helix, unease curling in his stomach. So what, he wanted to mix human DNA with yours? Yes, Saris said simply. To restore balance. To bring back what we lost. He let out a sharp laugh. So that's why you collect us? Samples for your science project? Her eyes flashed. No, I collect to remember, not to dissect. My husband believed in partnership, not possession. Then why hide this? He asked, voice rising. Why pretend it's a museum when it's a lab? She looked away. Because after he died, the council outlawed his research. They called it blasphemy against our lineage. I buried his work and his name to protect it. And when I found you on that barge, her voice faltered. You reminded me of him. The same defiance, the same refusal to bow. Reed's anger cooled, replaced by something heavier. Your husband's dead, Saris. You can't fix that with me. I don't want to fix it, she said, stepping closer. I want to understand it. He believed humans were more than chance. He thought your evolution was guided, maybe even designed. And now others want that knowledge for themselves. The Syndicate? She nodded. They serve the Council's darker factions. If they obtain my husband's data, they'll weaponize it, turn humanity into raw material for their experiments. That's why they came for you. Reed crossed his arms. And you think I can help stop them? Her silver eyes met his. You already have. You fought when others froze. You saved Carrie without hesitation. You choose compassion even in chains. That is the strength my people lost. He didn't know what to say. The words hit deeper than he wanted to admit. A sudden tremor shook the floor. Red lights flared along the walls. The drone buzzed in panic. Intrusion detected. Sector 3 breach. Saris drew her weapon, a sleek staff that snapped into shape with a hum. They've found us. Reed grabbed a nearby pipe and hefted it like a club. You said this place was sealed. It was, she replied grimly. Someone inside helped them. The walls trembled again. Metal groaned. From above came the screech of drills cutting through the ceiling. Reed glanced at her. You still think saving your species is worth this? Saris gave a small, cold smile. Now, human, it's not just about my species. It's about who controls yours. She flicked her wrist and the chamber's lights shifted from blue to crimson. Locks disengaged. Machinery stirred beneath their feet. Ancient systems awakening. Reed tightened his grip on the pipe, heart pounding. What did you just do? Open the vault, Saris said. If they want the truth so badly, let them come see it. Somewhere above, the drills broke through. Sparks rained down like falling stars. And in that blood-red light, Reed realized the war she had spoken of wasn't just between empires. It had begun the moment humanity left Earth. And he was standing in the middle of it. The sound of tearing metal split the silence like thunder. Sparks cascaded from the ceiling as a circular section of steel peeled away, raining molten fragments onto the laboratory floor. Reed shielded his eyes and coughed through the haze. The vault, whatever ancient fortress Saris had awakened, was no longer hidden. Figures dropped through the opening one after another, armored in black with glowing amber visors. Syndicate troops, fast, precise, ruthless. Saris moved first. With a flick of her staff, a shield of refracted light burst into place around her, shimmering like liquid glass. Bolts of plasma struck it and bounced harmlessly away, scattering across the walls. Stay behind me, she shouted. Reed crouched near a console, searching for anything that looked like a weapon. His hands brushed a heavy metal rod. It wasn't much, but it was solid. "Behind you's not my style," he muttered, rising to meet the first attacker who jumped down. He swung. The blow connected with a sickening crunch, knocking the soldier backward into two others. The shock jarred his arms, but he didn't stop. He had fought miners twice his size back on New Montana. This wasn't new, just louder. Across the room, Sarah struck with elegance and fury. Her weapon sliced through the air, every movement a blur of light. "The vault must not fall," she commanded, her voice echoing off the walls. Then from the chaos, a familiar voice cut through the noise. "Stop," Reed froze. Through the smoke, a figure stepped forward, lowering her visor. Delicate gray skin, narrow face, eyes like twin coals of sorrow and resolve. "Kiri," he whispered, disbelief crashing into him. But it wasn't the small girl he'd rescued. It was someone older, taller, though unmistakably of the same race. Her features bore the same faint luminescent freckles. "Not Kiri," Sarah said sharply. "Her sister, Lyra." The woman raised her weapon. "Stand down, Lady Vale. By order of the Syndicate and the Galactic Council's Purity Division, you are under arrest for genetic heresy." Sarah's eyes went cold. "The Council sends assassins now? How efficient." Lyra's voice trembled, but she didn't lower the gun. "I was sent to stop you before your research spreads. You're tampering with bloodlines that should never mix." Reed felt anger rise like heat. "You mean humans," he said. "You're scared of what we can do." Lyra's gaze flicked to him. "You shouldn't exist here at all." Too late for that. He tightened his grip on the rod. Sarah's hand brushed his arm, a silent warning. "She's not our enemy," she whispered. "She's being used." "Used?" Lyra barked. "I volunteered." "Do you even know what they're doing?" Sarah demanded. "The Syndicate isn't protecting purity, they're farming extinction. They'll drain what's useful from every species and leave ashes behind." For a heartbeat, the room fell silent except for the hum of the vault's systems. Lyra hesitated. Her gun wavered. Reed took a step forward. "Listen to her. You think we're the monsters, but they're using all of us." Lyra's jaw clenched. She looked at him, and in that moment of doubt, a blast rang out from behind her. A Syndicate officer, impatient, fired. The bolt hit Sarah's shoulder, spinning her to the side. She didn't cry out, but her shield flickered and died. Reed roared, rushing forward before he even thought. He slammed into the officer, wrenching the weapon free, and fired blindly upward. Blue plasma streaked through the smoke. The enemy fell back under the sudden fury. Lyra shouted, "Cease fire! Cease fire!" But no one listened. The Syndicate's discipline had cracked. Sarah staggered, clutching her wound. Blood, silver and luminous, slipped between her fingers. She turned to the vault console and pressed her hand to a glass plate. "Reed, what?" "The failsafe. We can't let them take what's here." He ran to her side. "What happens if we trigger it?" "Everything collapses, including us." "Not a great plan." Her lips curved into a faint, pained smile. "Then think of something better, human." Reed scanned the console. The design was alien, but logic was universal. Energy conduits, reactor output, structural stabilizers. He had seen enough mining cores to recognize overload systems. "If I reroute this power line through the coolant grid, we can fry the access doors without blowing the core." "You can do that?" He hesitated. "Probably," Sarah laughed weakly. "I understand why my husband admired your kind." He slammed his hand on the panel. Sparks erupted. The walls groaned as power surged through conduits. Outside, the soldiers shouted as the bulkhead sealed, glowing red from the sudden heat. The laboratory shuddered but held. When the smoke cleared, half the attackers were trapped behind fused doors. The rest retreated, dragging the wounded. Lyra lingered at the breach, torn between orders and conscience. "You'll regret this," she said finally. "The Council doesn't forget rebellion." Sarah straightened despite her wound. "Let them remember my defiance." Lyra met Reed's eyes one last time before disappearing into the smoke. When it was over, the vault was a ruin of half-melted consoles and burnt walls. Reed helped Sarah to a chair, her face pale beneath the light of her hair. "You saved us," she murmured. He shook his head. "No, you saved yourself. I just made sure it didn't explode." Her smile was tired but real. "Humility, another human trait my people lost centuries ago." She touched a control on her wrist and a small drone emerged from the shadows, scanning her wound. "There's something you should see," she said quietly. She handed him a small glass-like cube taken from the core of the vault. Inside, holographic symbols shifted like stars. "My husband's last message," she whispered. "He recorded it before he died. I never had the courage to watch it." Reed turned the cube over in his hands. "You think it's connected to all this?" "I think," she said, her voice trembling, "it's the reason they want you." A low rumble shook the floor again, deeper this time, like something vast moving far beneath them. Reed glanced toward the ceiling. "Please tell me that's not another attack." Cyrus looked at the cube glowing in his hand. "No," she said softly. "That's the vault waking up. It knows the blood it was waiting for has finally arrived." Reed froze. "The what?" "The key, human," she said, her eyes gleaming with pain and revelation. "It's not a code or a crystal. It's you." And before he could ask what she meant, the vault began to open. The floor split open with a deep, grinding groan that seemed to come from the bones of the moon itself. Dust swirled in ghostly spirals as the vault began to unfold, layer by layer, like some vast mechanical flower opening after centuries of darkness. Reed stumbled back, gripping the railing. "You said you sealed this place." "I did," Cyrus replied, voice strained, her silver blood still glinting against her sleeve. "But the vault was built to recognize genetic resonance. It's responding to you. Beneath them, ancient mechanisms whirred to life. Rings of faint blue light rotated around a glowing core suspended in midair. The air crackled, heavy with static, as holographic streams spiraled upward, filling the chamber with flickering constellations of symbols and faces. Human faces. Reed's breath caught. "Those are people. Data imprints," Sarah said quietly. "Your ancestors. Human explorers who vanished before the first council survey. The vault archived their genetic echoes. Why? Because this place wasn't built by Theans," she said, eyes wide as the light reflected in them. "It was built for humans by something that knew what you'd become." The thought hit Reed like a punch. He stepped closer, drawn toward the rotating core. The light pulsed faster as he approached, almost in rhythm with his heartbeat. "Reed, stop," Cyrus called. "It's linking with your neural field." Too late. The light burst outward, wrapping around him like liquid fire. He gasped as vision slammed into his mind, images of stars seen through unfamiliar eyes, worlds shaped by hands not human or Thean. Voices whispered in a dozen languages he didn't understand yet somehow did. "You adapt. You endure. You were the seed." Then darkness, swift and merciless. When he came to, Cyrus was kneeling beside him. The vault was quiet again. The lights dimmed to a soft pulse. Her hands trembled slightly as she touched his temple. "You were out for minutes. The system connected to your biofield," he groaned. "Feels like it downloaded a planet into my skull." Cyrus's gaze was filled with awe. "It recognized you as a descendant of the builders. Your genome carries sequences lost to all known human populations. You're proof my husband was right." He rubbed his temples. "Proof that I'm a science project, you mean?" "Proof that humans were engineered for survival," she said, her voice trembling between fear and wonder. "And now the vault holds what everyone's been fighting for. The key to interspecies adaptation. The Syndicate, the Council, they all want this. Then we destroy it," Reed said flatly. Cyrus hesitated. "If we do, both our species may die out. Without this data, Theans cannot recover. And humans." She looked up at him. "You will face them alone. They will never stop hunting what's in your blood." Before he could answer, an alarm flared again, this time sharper, more desperate. "Incoming vessel detected," a mechanical voice droned. Cyrus's expression darkened. "Lyra, your friendly Syndicate officer?" "Yes, and she's bringing reinforcements." Reed helped Cyrus to her feet. "Then we move." They raced through the narrow corridors, the air thick with heat and the scent of ion discharge. The base trembled as dropships pierced the upper atmosphere. Every few seconds, the hum of engines thundered above like an approaching storm. "Where's Kiri?" Reed asked, scanning the corridor. "She's in the lower tunnels," Cyrus said. "If we reach the launch deck, we can extract her and escape." They reached the central lift, only to find the power conduits melted from the earlier surge. Reed stared at the shaft. "We can climb," Cyrus arched an eyebrow. "You humans are obsessed with climbing things." "It's a survival instinct," he said, grabbing a maintenance rung and starting upward. She followed, muttering something in her native tongue that sounded suspiciously like a curse. Halfway up, The shaft shook violently. A bolt of plasma tore through the wall, grazing Saris's arm. She slipped. Reed caught her wrist, muscles straining. "Got you," he grunted. For a second, their eyes met, hers glowing faintly even in the darkness. Then, with a strength that startled him, she pushed herself upward, regaining the rung. "You're impossible," she said breathlessly. Compliment accepted. When they emerged at the top, chaos reigned. The moon's surface was ablaze, ships descending like fiery arrows, soldiers pouring out under banners of the Syndicate. Overhead, the stars were veiled by smoke. Reed spotted Kiri running toward them, escorted by one of Saris's surviving attendants. She carried a small sphere clutched to her chest, the cube from the vault now transformed, glowing like a living heart. "It wouldn't let me leave without this," Kiri cried. "It followed me." Saris took the sphere, her expression unreadable. The vault bonded to her too. "It's choosing who survives," Reed frowned. "It can choose?" "It can now," Saris said grimly, "because it carries a part of you." Before he could respond, a shadow loomed across the sky, a massive cruiser descending, its engines roaring like thunder. At its prow stood Lyra, amplified through a projection, her face cold and unflinching. "Lady Vale," her voice boomed, "surrender the human and the relic. I will grant you a swift death. Resist and you doom every world you care for." Reed stepped forward. "I've had enough of being traded between monsters." Saris placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then let's show her what monsters fear." She turned to Kiri. "Activate the sphere's projection." The child pressed her tiny hands against the orb. Light erupted, shooting skyward, a vast column piercing the clouds. Every Syndicate ship froze midair as alien runes blazed across their hulls. "What is that?" Reed shouted over the wind. "The vault's failsafe," Saris replied. "It's transmitting everything. The proof of the Syndicate's crimes, their experiments, their plans to use human DNA for control." Lyra's voice cut off mid-command as her ship shuddered. Sparks erupted from its engines. "No," Reed grinned. "Guess she doesn't like free information." Saris turned toward him, her luminous eyes soft now, almost human. "When truth spreads, control dies." Below them, the vault's light reached its peak, spilling across the stars. For a heartbeat, it painted the night with the memories of 1,000 extinct worlds, Thayan, human, and beyond. And as the Syndicate fleet began to crumble under its own exposed deceit, Saris whispered, "Now they'll all know what humanity truly is." Reed looked at her, the light reflecting in his eyes like fire. "Yeah," he said quietly, "something worth fighting for." The vault collapsed behind them, sealing itself in silence once more, but its message was already free, carried through every corner of the galaxy. And for the first time since his capture, Reed Marlowe felt the weight of destiny, not as a prisoner, but as a spark. The stars had never looked so sharp. They burned like tiny wounds across the black horizon as the debris of the Syndicate fleet drifted away, silent and defeated. The moon's fractured surface shimmered beneath the light of a new dawn, the kind that wasn't made of sunlight but of truth. Reed Marlowe sat on the steps of the shattered launch platform, breathing hard. His knuckles were raw, his shirt torn, and his mind still echoing with the vault's final words. Beside him, Kiri slept, her head resting on a bundle of cloth that glowed faintly from the sphere's core. Every few seconds, the orb pulsed like a heartbeat, alive but calm. Saris Vale stood near the edge of the platform, her silver hair whipping in the cold wind. Her wounded arm was wrapped in makeshift bandages, and her usually perfect composure had cracked, revealing the weary soul beneath. "It's over," Reed said quietly, though he didn't quite believe it. Saris turned, her eyes glinting like molten glass. "No, it's only changed shape. The Syndicate may be broken, but the Council will come soon. They'll demand explanations." Reed exhaled a humorless laugh. "Good luck explaining any of this. The vault waking up, that transmission, it's all over the networks by now." "Yes," she said softly, walking closer. "And for the first time, the galaxy will see humans not as relics, not as resources, but as the variable that cannot be controlled." Reed gave a small, tired grin. "Unpredictable, dangerous, that's us." "Adaptable," Saris corrected gently. "Your kind survives where others despair. That's why they fear you." He looked at her. "And you? You fear us too?" Her expression softened. "I did once. Now I envy you." For a moment, neither spoke. The wind carried the faint scent of ozone and frost. the smell of something ending and something else beginning. The faint hum of engines broke the silence. From the horizon, a ship approached, sleek, silver, and marked with a symbol neither of them recognized. Its lights blinked in peaceful rhythm. Reed stood squinting. More syndicate? No, Sarah said, eyes narrowing. Council scouts. They're early. The ship hovered, then descended slowly. A voice came over the comm channel, calm but authoritative. Unidentified vessel detected. This is the Galactic Council Peace Envoy. Lower your defenses, Reed chuckled. Peace Envoy? That's new. Saris didn't lower her weapon. Their definition of peace is usually surrender. The ship's doors opened with a hiss. Figures emerged, not soldiers this time, but delegates wearing white and gold insignia. Among them was a face Reed recognized. Lyra. Her armor was gone, replaced by a pale uniform bearing the crest of the Council's Science Division. Her eyes found Reed's first, then Saris's. You should have killed me, she said, voice steady but without malice. You're welcome, Reed replied. I was busy saving the galaxy. Lyra ignored the jab. Your transmission reached every inhabited system. The Syndicate's leadership is in hiding. The Council cannot ignore what you exposed. She stepped forward, holding out a data tablet. They've ordered an emergency summit. Humanity is to be invited to speak for the first time in recorded history. Reed blinked. You're serious? As serious as extinction, Lyra said. You forced their hand. Saris approached slowly, her expression unreadable. And what about me? Lyra met her gaze. They can't decide whether to arrest you or thank you. I told them both would be wise. For the first time, Saris smiled. Tired, genuine. How very diplomatic of you. Lyra hesitated, then added, I'm sorry for my part in all this. Your part helped end it, Saris replied. That is enough. The envoy members began unloading supplies, setting up medical tents and communication beacons. Above them, the vault's final signal continued to shimmer faintly in the sky, a spectral ribbon of light, a monument to what had been lost and found again. Reed turned to Saris. So what now? You stand trial? I give a speech? Saris shook her head. No, we start again. She lifted the glowing sphere from Kiri's hands. The light within shifted, forming complex shapes, symbols of both human and Thean DNA twined together. The vault didn't just reveal the past, she said. It offered a path forward. A synthesis. A new kind of life, Reed frowned. You mean hybrids? I mean balance, she said quietly. A world where neither of us has to fade. My people can regain what we lost. Yours can learn that survival is not the same as living. He looked at the swirling lights reflected in her eyes. You sound like your husband. Sarah smiled faintly. No, I sound like us. For a long moment, they stood side by side, watching the sun crest over the horizon, the first true dawn. Glass Harbor had seen in decades. Reed reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of metal, a fragment from the barge where they'd first met. He turned it over once, then tossed it into the wind. It glinted, caught the light, and vanished into the snow. Guess I don't need souvenirs anymore, he said. Saris tilted her head. Why? Because I'm not going back, he said simply. I've got work to do. Kiri stirred beside them, blinking sleepily. Are we going home now? She asked. Reed smiled down at her. We're making home, kid. Above them, the stars flared brighter, their light weaving with the faint glow of the vault's remnants. For the first time, humanity's story wasn't one of isolation, or conquest, or survival. It was a bridge built in defiance, across galaxies. And as the wind carried the final whispers of the vault through the frozen air, Saris took Reed's hand and said softly, Between extinction and eternity, there is always a human. Reed squeezed her fingers. Then let's make sure they remember why. The sky blazed with color, gold, silver, and deep blue, as the dawn spread over the shattered moon. It wasn't the end. It was the beginning of humanity's second genesis,